My name is Leora Mavel, I'm 42, and during my divorce hearing my husband laughed in front of the judge saying, "I'm taking half your millions, including your grandmother's estate." If you've ever faced something like this, comment where you're reading from. It was Thursday, February 11th, 2021, 9:28, when I sat in the courthouse hallway with a manila envelope pressed against my lap. The envelope was warm from my palms, the edges already softened. Inside were 3 documents that had taken me 6 months to secure. 1 notarized letter, 2 financial statements. They smelled faintly of toner and glue like all serious paper did. Through the frosted glass doors I could hear the shuffle of shoes, the clink of someone's pen hitting a desk. The air tasted metallic the way only government buildings do, recycled, stale, too many mouths breathing it. When our case was called, I walked in behind him. He smirked, his new suit a shade too shiny, tie crooked as always. He leaned toward me just before we sat, voice low. "By lunch you'll be half the woman you thought you were." The words stabbed more than they should have. For 14 years I had heard versions of that line. Still, hearing it in this sterile public space tightened something in my chest. The proceedings began. Our lawyer droned through numbers, assets, obligations. My husband's knee bounced under the table until finally, when the judge asked about property, he leaned back, spread his arms wide, and declared, "I'll be taking half her fortune, Your Honor, including her grandmother's estate." His laugh cracked through the courtroom like a dropped glass. Even the clerk glanced up. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Do you have documentation supporting that claim?" "Of course," my husband said, grinning. "Marriage means what's hers is mine." The courtroom murmured, low and rippling. My fingers pressed against the envelope under the table. The paper inside seemed to hum against my skin. I didn't know yet that in 22 minutes, when I stood and handed that envelope to the judge, the room would erupt in a way my husband never expected. The courtroom smelled faintly of dust and paper ink. A long fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering once every few seconds. I sat at the petitioner's table, the manila envelope now resting on the polished wood, my palm covering its corner as if it were a living thing. My husband leaned back in his chair, smugness radiating. "Your Honor," he said loudly, "she's only wealthy because she married me. I built everything. Even her grandmother's house? I paid for the upkeep. That's marital property." The words hit like stones, but the math was all wrong. The house, 4,200 square feet, oak floors, the deed signed in 1978, was never his. It had come down my line free and clear. The judge tapped a pen against his notes. "That's a serious assertion. Do you have receipts?" My husband barked a laugh. "I don't need receipts. She'll fold like she always does." Those last words stung. Not because they weren't true once, but because they had been. For years I'd folded. When he maxed out our joint card, when he belittled me at dinners, when he called my work play money. Not anymore. I shifted forward in my seat, the chair legs screeching slightly against the floor. My attorney glanced at me, eyes sharp as if asking silently, "Now?" I shook my head once. "Not yet. Let him dig deeper." My husband kept talking, voice rising, enjoying the attention. "I want half of everything, accounts, investments, estate. If she resists, I'll drag this out until she's broke." The judge scribbled a note. The gallery behind us whispered, the sound like dry leaves. I placed my hand fully on the envelope. My thumb traced the flap. Inside were the documents. A notarized letter from the estate lawyer, a certified bank statement, and one other sheet that would end this charade in seconds. I caught my husband's eye. He smirked, mistaking my calm for defeat. But under the table my heel pressed hard into the floor. A signal to myself. This time I would not fold. 14 years of marriage doesn't disappear in a day. It builds brick by brick, in the smallest humiliations. I remembered the first house we bought together in 2007. 2 bedrooms, 1,200 square feet, beige siding. I had put down $60,000 from my grandmother's early gift. He put down nothing but told everyone at the housewarming, "I got us this place." I smiled, holding the tray of wine glasses, not correcting him. Later, when my grandmother passed in 2015, I inherited her estate. A sprawling brick home on Riverton Avenue. 3 fireplaces, original woodwork, valued at $1.3 million. She left it to me alone, notarized, recorded in county files. My husband didn't even attend the reading of the will. When I told him, he just said, "Great. Now we've got something to fall back on." Fall back on. That was how he saw me. A cushion, a resource. I worked too, managing marketing accounts, late nights chasing contracts. My name was on the checks. But when clients praised me, he'd joke, "She plays with ads, I handle real money." Even vacations bore the same pattern. I once saved $12,400 for a 2-week trip to Italy. He posted photos online with captions, "My treat for my wife." And I let it slide. Over and over I let it slide. What was at stake now wasn't just money. It was more than the $800,000 he demanded in equalization. More than the estate. It was my dignity, my grandmother's memory, the right to say, "This was mine, not yours." The courtroom was just the final stage of a pattern I had tolerated too long. The fluorescent light flickered again above me. My husband laughed at something his lawyer whispered. The sound grated familiar, like the hum of an old fridge in a too-small kitchen. This time, though, I had something I had never held before, proof. Hard, notarized, undeniable proof. And for once I wasn't afraid to use it. The judge's patience was thinning. He leaned forward, glasses low on his nose. "Mr. Mavil, you've made large claims. Without supporting documents, this court cannot consider them." My husband smirked wider, spreading his hands. "We're married. That's the document." A few people in the gallery chuckled. That was my cue. I slid the manila envelope across the table, the paper inside whispering against cardboard. My attorney picked it up, stood, and handed the first document to the bailiff. The pages rustled as they reached the bench. The judge adjusted his glasses, reading aloud. "Last will and testament of Miriam Thaler, dated March 2, 2015. Bequeathing property located at 411 Riverton Avenue solely to granddaughter Leora Mavil. No spousal claims or entitlements applicable." The courtroom went silent. My husband's grin froze just slightly. The judge looked over his glasses at him. "Did you know about this will?" My husband shifted in his seat. "She must have tricked her. My wife, she's manipulative. This can't be right." I spoke for the first time that morning, my voice steady despite the hammering of my pulse. "It's notarized. Certified at the county office. I have the stamped copy here." My attorney slid the second sheet forward. The seal glinted under the overhead light, embossed and undeniable. The judge nodded once, slow. "Yes, this is official." A low murmur rippled across the gallery, the sound of air being let out of a balloon. I caught my husband's eye. His smirk had drained into something else, tight lips, a twitch at the jaw. In my lap, my hand brushed the last document still in the envelope. A bank statement. The one that would end this for good. But not yet. Not all at once. The click inside me was loud as thunder. I make a choice. The judge set the notarized will aside and folded his hands. "Mr. Mavil, this property is clearly outside marital assets. Unless you can prove otherwise, your claim to it is denied." For the first time in years, I watched my husband lose color in his face. His lawyer whispered furiously, flipping through a thin folder that looked almost empty. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Mavil, can you provide additional proof regarding the estate's upkeep? You mentioned sole responsibility?" That was the moment for document 2. My attorney retrieved the next sheet, the certified bank statement I had tucked carefully inside. Printed in black and white. Payments, $3,842 roof repair, March 2019 L. Mavil account. Payments, $2,617 plumbing overhaul, July 2020 L. Mavil account. Payments, $6,225 property taxes, 2018 to 2020 L. Mavil account. Every check carried my signature. Every cent came from my personal account, not joint funds. The judge skimmed, then raised his brows. "This establishes a consistent pattern of sole responsibility. Combined with the will, the estate remains exclusively yours." He made a note, then looked over his glasses at my husband. "Sir, do you contest these payments?" My husband stammered. "Well, she never told me." The judge cut him off. "These are bank certified. The amounts are precise. Unless you can produce contradictory records, this court will uphold them." The gavel tapped lightly, not final yet, but firm. In that moment, I felt something I hadn't in years: validation. Paper was speaking louder than all his laughter, all his swagger. When court recessed for lunch, my attorney leaned close. His voice was low but certain. "This is airtight. He's overplayed. You just need to hold steady until final ruling. Don't gloat, don't react. Let the documents speak." I nodded, clutching the envelope. Stakes were higher than ever, because the last page inside wasn't about the house. It was about the joint account he thought he controlled. And once I revealed it, there would be no way back. When we reconvened after lunch, the courtroom felt different. The gallery was fuller, as if word had spread. My husband strutted back to his seat with false bravado, but the sweat at his temples betrayed him. The judge cleared his throat. "We will resume discussion of marital assets." That was my cue. I reached into the envelope and withdrew the final page. A joint account statement dated January 2021. My attorney rose, document in hand. "Your Honor," he said, "we submit into Evidence Exhibit C a withdrawal of $74,300 from the joint account, executed solely by Mr. Mavil, transferred into a personal account under his name." The judge's brows rose. He leaned forward. "Mr. Mavil, is this accurate?" My husband barked a laugh. "So what? Married people share money." "Not when it's siphoned without consent," my attorney countered. "Not when those funds were earmarked for household expenses and tuition payments." The judge examined the line items. The black ink glared from the page. January 14, 2021, online transfer. $74,300. To Mavil. The gallery murmured again, louder this time. My husband's lawyer tried to speak, but the judge lifted a hand. "This paints a very different picture. Sir, you claimed entitlement to your wife's inheritance. Meanwhile, you concealed substantial withdrawals for personal use." My husband slammed his palm on the table. "She's twisting everything." I finally spoke, my voice steady, carrying across the silent room. "I'm not twisting. I'm showing receipts." The judge's gavel tapped once. Quiet in the court. He looked at me, then at the document. "Exhibit C will weigh heavily in our decision." The silence that followed was suffocating, for him, not for me. I leaned back, the envelope now empty, my hands calm on the table. For years he had wielded laughter like a weapon. Now paper had silenced him. And the shock was settling in on his face, quiet but unmistakable. The fallout came faster than I expected. 2 days later, on February 13, 2021, the judge issued an interim order. My husband's request for half of everything was denied. The Riverton Avenue estate was declared separate property, beyond marital division. And the $74,300 withdrawal? It was to be reimbursed into the joint account within 60 days. When my attorney read the order aloud, my husband's face went red. His fists clenched on the table. The courtroom smelled faintly of dust and cheap cologne, the air heavy with the weight of his unraveling. "You think this is a win?" he hissed at me in the corridor afterward. "You've humiliated me." I held his gaze. "No, you humiliated yourself when you lied." That weekend, word spread through family. My sister-in-law called me, her voice sharp. "You had to drag everyone through court? Couldn't you just compromise?" I answered quietly. "Compromise means I lose what was never his. I'm done losing." At home, the silence felt different. No longer the silence of being ignored, but the silence of peace. I cooked pasta in my grandmother's kitchen, the smell of garlic filling the air, and ate at the long oak table alone. For once, solitude didn't ache, it steadied me. Practical consequences unfolded too. His credit line froze after the order. The bank had flagged unusual withdrawals. Our joint card was locked, leaving him scrambling for cash. His lawyer filed motions, but each bounced back against the notarized will and receipts. Meanwhile, I finally paid for repairs I had been postponing. $1,900 to fix the leaky roof, $620 to service the furnace. Writing those checks in my own name felt like reclaiming oxygen. The small win was clear. I wasn't finished yet. The final hearing loomed, but the tide had turned. For the first time in years, he was the one answering questions. I was the one holding ground, and I intended to keep it that way. The final hearing date was set. March 4, 2021, 10 a.m. I walked into the courthouse with the manila envelope thinner now, only one paper left. The hallway smelled of burnt coffee from a vending machine and old wood polish. My husband looked deflated but still tried to sneer. His lawyer muttered something about reframing the narrative. I stayed quiet. When the judge called us forward, my attorney produced the last exhibit. It was small but devastating. A printed email chain between my husband and a realtor, dated December 18, 2020, 6 weeks before he filed for divorce. Subject line: Preliminary Inquiry, Riverton Avenue Property. Body: Once my wife and I separate, I'll be entitled to sell this house. Can we meet to discuss valuation? Attached was the realtor's reply with a draft appraisal request. The judge read it slowly aloud, his voice echoing through the room. So, Mr. Mavil, weeks before you even filed, you were preparing to liquidate property proven to be outside marital assets? My husband's face twisted. That's taken out of context. The judge's gavel cracked once. The context is clear. You misrepresented your rights. You wasted this court's time with false claims. And you attempted to sell what you had no legal claim to. The gallery stirred. Someone actually laughed. His last countermove was weak. He muttered about how marriage is partnership, and she owed him comfort. But when pressed for legal grounds, he fell silent. I sat still, hands folded, calm. The judge leaned forward. This court will finalize the division as follows. Separate property remains with Mrs. Mavil. Mr. Mavil is ordered to return $74,300 within 45 days. Court costs assigned to respondent. My husband opened his mouth, but no words came. For once, silence wrapped around him instead of me. The truth gap had closed. No more denial, no more twisting. The paper trail was complete, undeniable. And with that, there was no way back. It's now September 2021, 6 months since the final hearing, and the quiet in my life feels earned. Mornings begin in the Riverton Avenue house with the smell of coffee drifting through wide hallways my grandmother once walked. The oak floors creak beneath my slippers, a reminder that the home is old but still mine. Bills arrive addressed only to me. Property tax $2,074 this quarter, insurance $618. I pay them online without hesitation. The manila envelope sits in the bottom drawer of my desk, empty but still there. I kept it as a relic, the vessel that once carried every piece of proof. I keep boundaries now. My ex-husband calls occasionally, always about money, always circling. I don't pick up. His reimbursement, $74,300, arrived by certified check in April. Since then, nothing connects us except legal silence. Family dinners no longer mean enduring his laughter. When relatives ask, wasn't it harsh to fight him in court? I smile and change the subject. I don't justify, I don't explain. Boundaries don't require defense. Instead, I've built new rhythms. On Tuesdays, I teach a marketing workshop from the dining room, the same table where I once signed my grandmother's will. On Saturdays, I walk 3 miles along the river, earbuds in, the city noise fading into the steady rush of water. In 3 months, I plan to restore the upstairs library. New paint, shelves repaired, curtains light enough to let in morning sun. Small steps forward, all chosen by me. I no longer live waiting for approval or bracing for theft. I live present. Tonight, I sit by the fireplace with a notebook in my lap. The page is blank, the pen warm in my hand. I write slowly. I am whole and I am mine. The house hums around me steady. And I choose myself quietly, firmly, every single day.